Hey, welcome back. I dug up 4 of the haunting Reddit threads on the internet for you. Drop a like and subscribe if you want more. Let's get into it. The pastor at a church I've never set foot in recited my private confession word for word. I'm 27, which I know is old for a dorm, but I finished my undergrad late and am doing a 1-year design certificate now. I freelance as a graphic designer to pay for it. The program threw me into graduate housing, so I share a tiny 2-room with a girl named Hannah who is 22 and somehow has more of her life together than I do. I have never been religious, not raised in it, not curious about it, not hostile to it either. It just isn't a shape my brain makes. Hannah, on the other hand, watches this little Wednesday night live stream from the chapel attached to the university hospice. It's maybe 40 viewers on a good night. Soft-spoken older pastor, bad webcam, evasive carnations always slightly out of frame. She's been asking me to watch it with her for weeks. I kept saying no in the polite way you say no to a roommate you actually like, but I haven't been sleeping. Not nightmares, just that flat awake feeling at 3 in the morning where your ceiling looks too close. So last Wednesday I said fine, one time. And I opened my laptop on my bed, and Hannah sat cross-legged on the floor with her chamomile tea like it was a movie night. She had agreed to humor her roommate. One time. That was the deal she made with herself. The sermon was about loneliness, which, fine, broad target. I was half listening, half sketching thumbnails in a notebook. The pastor was doing this gentle thing where he'd pause between sentences like he was choosing each one. Then he stopped, looked straight into the camera, and he said, and I am quoting because I have rewatched it 40 times now, "There is a green hallway in my building where the lights buzz, and every time a man passes me there and his sleeve touches my shoulder, my whole body flinches before my mind catches up, and I am so tired of apologizing for a body that learned something I never agreed to teach it." That is a sentence I typed 2 nights earlier, into a journal document, offline, password locked, on a laptop that had been sitting closed on my desk while I was in the shower. I have never said any version of that out loud to anyone. Not to Hannah, not to a therapist because I don't have one, not even really to myself until I wrote it. I didn't move. I didn't make a noise. Hannah was nodding along like he'd said something pretty about grief. She hadn't read it. Nobody had read it. The pastor kept talking, gentle as ever, and I sat there with my notebook open on my knees and felt the room get very quiet inside my head. How could he possibly know? Hannah went to bed around 11. I waited until I heard her breathing change, then I opened my laptop again and scrubbed back through the recording. I needed to be wrong about this. I checked the journal file first. Local document, no cloud sync, no email draft, no copy pasted anywhere. I have a habit of writing in a single offline app because I don't trust the internet with anything that sounds like a feeling. The file had not been opened since the night I wrote it. The timestamp was clean. I checked my browser history for the dates around it. Nothing. I checked sent mail, drafts, the trash folder, my phone notes, the message threads with Hannah, the message threads with my mom. Nothing even adjacent. I had not spoken those words. I had typed them once, saved, closed the lid, and gone to make pasta. So I tried the rational ladder. Maybe it's just a common phrasing. Maybe lots of women write about flinching. Maybe my brain is pattern matching because I'm exhausted. Maybe I'm misremembering my own sentence, and the pastor said something close but not identical, and the closeness is doing the rest. I rewatched. Then I rewatched again with the volume up and a notebook in my lap, transcribing him word by word against my document open on the other monitor. It matched, including a typo. I had typed learned instead of learned in the first draft and gone back to fix it the next morning. He didn't say learned, obviously. You can't hear a missing vowel out loud, but the cadence of the sentence he spoke matched my first draft, not the corrected one. The rhythm was off by exactly 1 beat in the same place mine had been. That was the part she couldn't talk herself out of. I didn't sleep. I sat on my bed with the laptop closed and watched the window get gray. At 7, I put on a coat and walked across campus to the hospice. I didn't have a plan beyond seeing the building, seeing the pastor, putting a real human face on the thing so my brain would stop spiraling. The chapel is tucked into the back wing, One of those small interfaith rooms with stackable chairs and a wooden cross that can be swapped out for other symbols depending on the week. It smelled like lilies and bleach in equal measure, which is apparently the standard scent profile of a place where people go to die politely. A volunteer was setting out pamphlets. Older woman, kind face, name tag that said Marjorie. I asked her about the Wednesday evening service, said I'd watched the live stream and wanted to thank the pastor in person. She gave me a slightly puzzled smile. "Oh, Pastor Doyle's been on medical leave for about 6 weeks now. The Wednesday stream's been a guest chaplain." I asked who. She hesitated, looked at the sign-in sheet, looked back at me with the careful expression people use when they're trying to remember if something is supposed to be confidential. "I think it's Aaron," she said. "The campus chaplain. He fills in." Aaron. She knew that name from a flyer in her own dorm lobby. I knew Aaron's name before Marjorie said it. There are flyers in our dorm lobby with his face on them. The kind with a soft watercolor border and a sentence about how grief is a season, not a sentence. He runs a drop-in at the student center on Tuesday afternoons. I have walked past those flyers maybe 100 times. I have never been to the drop-in. I have never been to anything Aaron has run. I have never spoken to him. I'm not sure I'd recognize him on the street without the collar. I walked back to the dorm with my hands in my pockets and my jaw locked so tight I could feel a headache starting. When I got upstairs, Hannah was eating cereal, and I just said it, all of it, in one long, unbroken sentence. The journal, the typo, the leave of absence, the name. Hannah put her bowl down. She didn't laugh, didn't try to talk me out of it, didn't say, "Maybe you're tired." She said, "You need to talk to Claire." Claire is my art professor. She's in her 50s, runs the studio class I'm taking as part of my certificate, and she is the only person on this campus I trust without an asterisk. I opened my laptop right there and emailed her. Vague subject line, 2 sentences asking if we could meet about something weird. She wrote back in 4 minutes. Claire does not write back in 4 minutes. Claire writes back in 3 days, with a typo and an apology. Her email said, "Studio, tonight, 9 o'clock. Come alone. Bring whatever recording you have." 4 minutes. Like she'd been waiting for this email from someone, eventually. The studio at 9 is empty except for the smell of turpentine and the hum of the radiator. Claire was already there in her paint-stained cardigan. No students, no music, just her laptop open on the big shared table. She didn't say hello. She said, "Show me." I plugged in my drive and queued up the clip at the timestamp. She watched it once, all the way through, with her jaw set in a line I'd never seen on her face before. She didn't react when he hit the sentence. She just exhaled through her nose, like she'd been holding her breath for the whole minute leading up to it. Then she asked me something I wasn't expecting. "Paige, has Aaron ever offered you counseling? Pastoral, grief, anything? Has he ever invited you to a one-on-one? Has he ever asked to talk to you privately, even casually, in a hallway?" I told her no. I told her I had never met him. I told her I had never even nodded at him in passing, because I didn't know what he looked like up close. Claire closed her eyes for a second. When she opened them, she looked older. She said, very quietly, "Okay, that's the wrong answer. And it's also exactly the answer I needed." She wouldn't say more that night. She told me to go home, not to delete the file, not to post about it publicly yet, and not to be alone with any clergy on campus until she called me. So obviously, I came straight here and posted about it. Midwest Mortician. The hospice detail is what's sticking with me. Chaplains have access to rooms nobody else does, at hours nobody else is awake. Please be careful who you talk to next. Ceramics Kiln Girl. Your professor sounds like she's been holding this for a long time. Let her drive. She knows the building's politics better than any of us reading along. Lurker Since. Wait. He said the green hallway sentence out loud on a live stream that's archived? That's not just creepy, that's a recording with his face on it. Don't let them take that file down. 3 copies already. One with Claire, one on a drive Hannah is mailing to her mom tomorrow, one with the student paper's faculty advisor. The chapel's official channel pulled the stream 40 minutes after it ended, which is how I knew for sure it wasn't a coincidence. 3 days went by. Then Paige came back with a new post pinned to the top of the thread. I found Professor Claire's folder. It has 43 names. Claire called me Sunday afternoon and told me to come back to the studio. When I got there, she had a green file box on the table, and she didn't try to soften any of it. 18 months ago, Claire reported Aaron. A student in one of her seminars had broken down crying in office hours and told her that Aaron was offering pastoral counseling that was not pastoral and was not counseling. Claire walked it up the chain the way you're supposed to. The university did not fire him. What they did was move him. The hospice chaplaincy is funded by a single donor family. Their daughter died there 2 years ago, 21 years old, and Aaron sat with her for the last 3 weeks of her life. The family adores him. Their name is on the wing. Removing him from a position they pay for is, in administrative terms, a problem nobody wanted to have. So they slid him sideways into the hospice and let him keep the campus chaplaincy on paper. And they hoped. Claire did not hope. Claire started a folder, 43 names. 43 students who came to her, or to someone who came to her, describing the same thing in different words. Aaron knew. He knew about the breakup before they'd told their friends. He knew about the diagnosis. He knew the nickname only their dead father had used. He framed it as discernment, as the Spirit moving, as God placing them on his heart that morning. The mechanism is so stupid I want to scream. Aaron has clergy access to our dorm building for visiting grieving families, which means swipe access to the resident lounge, which means the shared printer. The printer cache holds every document anyone has sent to it for 30 days. The dorm also runs an automatic nightly backup of every laptop on the housing network unless you opt out, and almost nobody opts out because the opt-out is buried 3 menus deep in a portal nobody reads. I did not opt out. My journal app auto-saves a plain text mirror to the documents folder. The backup grabbed it. My case is only different because he used it on a live stream instead of in a counseling room. He got greedy, or arrogant, or both. Claire said she has been waiting almost a year for exactly one piece of evidence loud enough that the donor family cannot pretend not to see it. The recording is that piece. The comments on the update came in faster than she could read them. Not that kind of doc. Shared printer cache on a dorm network is a real attack surface. If he has any IT-adjacent building access, he wouldn't even need to be technical, just patient. Quiet, Anon. He knew about my abortion before I told anyone. I left that school 2 years ago and never said a word because I thought I was the only one. I am not okay reading this, but I'm so glad you wrote it. Former seminarian. The seminary he came from has been quietly relocating men like him for at least 30 years. I sat in a room where they decided where to send one. They call it a fresh start placement. Burn the folder into daylight. Hannah with an H. I'm the roommate. I'm the one who made her watch it. I have not stopped throwing up since Friday. I am so sorry, Paige. Ex-evangelical throwaway. Hannah, this is not on you. He picked that chapel because students from your building stream it. You were the bait he was fishing for, not the one who set the hook. The decision they made together was not the one most of you were yelling for. We did not go to the police. Claire said it plainly. A chaplain quoting a sentence on a live stream is not a crime any prosecutor will touch. The folder is hearsay until each of those 43 women decides on her own timeline whether to come forward. And the second this becomes a public investigation, the donor family closes ranks around him out of sheer reflex. So she sent the recording. Not to the dean, not to a reporter. Directly to the donor family. Attached to it was a single page from the folder, redacted down to dates and patterns, with a short note from Claire that I have not seen and don't need to. The recording spoke for itself. Their daughter's face is on the wall of a wing run by a man who has been doing this. That was the leverage. 72 hours. That is how long it took. By Wednesday morning, Aaron was no longer listed on the hospice staff page. By Wednesday afternoon, his name was gone from the campus chaplaincy directory. The university sent a one-paragraph email to housing referring to a transition in pastoral care leadership and thanking him for his years of service. No charges, no statement, no apology to anyone. The flyers in our lobby came down overnight. Hannah watched a custodian take them off the corkboard and put them in a recycling bin without folding them. I tried to feel something clean about it. I sat on my bed with the laptop closed and waited for relief, the way you wait for a sneeze. It didn't come. What came was Claire calling me on Friday, voice completely flat, telling me the hospice administrator had already announced Aaron's replacement. Another chaplain. From the same seminary. Recommended by the same donor family. I don't know what to do with that yet. Claire is going to keep the folder open. I told her I would help her organize it over the summer if she wants, and I meant it. For now, I am moving out of the dorm at the end of the term. I sleep with my laptop unplugged and the lid wedged shut with a paperback. The journal app is gone. I write in a notebook now, in pencil, and I keep the notebook in my bag even when I'm in the room. I don't have a tidy ending for this. He stopped. The thing that let him do it, didn't. Evangelical throwaway. The quietly reassigned to hospice pipeline is so depressingly common in small denominations. The donor angle tracks too. Document everything before they sanitize it. Different state, same story. This happened at my school in 2019, almost beat for beat, down to the donor wing. Different man, same seminary network. If you and Claire ever publish a map of where these men get sent, I have receipts to add. Tired adjunct. The institution isn't broken. This is the institution. Archivist Jane. Paige, if Claire wants a second pair of hands on those 43 accounts, I do this for a living. Trauma-informed intake, encrypted storage, the works. My inbox is open whenever she's ready. On to the next one. I, 28 female, found a death certificate with my older brother's name on it, except he's been dead my whole life. Some houses keep their secrets folded in the linen. I'm 28. I teach year 3 at the village primary, and I still live with my mom in the same stone cottage I grew up in. My dad passed when I was 19, and it just made sense to stay. She's in her early 60s, gentle, church-going, the kind of woman who irons tea towels. Our life is small and good. Tea at 6, the radio on, the dog at our feet. You need to know one thing about this house before I tell you the rest. There is a photograph on the hallway shelf, framed in dark wood, of a baby in a white knitted cardigan. That is Brandon. He was my older brother, and the family story is that he died of crib death 2 years before I was born. My mother has never once said his name out loud in my hearing. Not at Christmas, not at his little grave in the churchyard, not even when I asked about him as a child. My dad used to say, gently, that Mum's grief was a room she kept locked, and we were to leave the door alone. So I did. For 28 years, I did. There's been a pipe weeping under the linen cupboard for weeks. This Sunday, it finally pooled out onto the hallway floor while Mum was at the 10 o'clock service. I pulled everything out, sheets, towels, the old hot water bottles, all the way down to the warped paper lining the bottom shelf. Underneath that paper, flat against the wood, was a stiff manila envelope, solicitor's address in the corner, addressed to my mother. Sealed, but the glue had given up years ago. I told myself I would not open it. I opened it. The baby in the cardigan never grew up. The certificate says otherwise. The first document was a death certificate. Brandon's full name, our surname, my mother listed as informant. Age at death, 14 years. Not 14 weeks, not 14 months, 14 years. I read it 3 times. I checked the date of birth against the one carved on the little headstone I have visited every Mother's Day of my life. They don't match. The headstone says he lived 4 months. This paper says he lived 14 years and died the spring before I started reception class. And there's something else. Where the cause of death should be printed, Someone has gone over the line with a thick black marker, again and again, until the paper is shiny and ridged. You can feel the pen strokes through the back of the page. Whoever did it pressed so hard the marker bled into the document underneath. I'm sitting on the cupboard floor with wet towels around my knees, and I can hear Mum's car coming up the lane. On to the next one. I sat there on the cupboard floor for a long time, with the certificate flat on my knees, trying to make the maths work in any direction that wasn't the obvious one. I kept listing things to myself, out loud, like a child reciting times tables. The grave in the churchyard, second row from the U. The 2 dates carved on it, 4 months apart. The little story Mum used to whisper when I couldn't sleep, about how losing him had made her and Dad love me twice as hard, because they knew now how quickly a child could be taken. The way she walks down to that grave alone every April with a single white tulip. I have watched her do it 28 Aprils running. None of those things fit a 14-year-old. I made myself go through the rest of the envelope. There were 3 more pages. A letter on solicitor's letterhead addressed to my mother, referencing the matter we discussed and the placement, and asking her to confirm she understood that contact would not be possible. A second document I couldn't fully read, all subsections and reference numbers, but the word placement was there again, and so was Brandon's full name. And a small folded note in my dad's handwriting, which I would know anywhere, that just said, "Helen, please, for her sake, we agreed." Her sake. That's me. I'm the her. I photographed every page, front, back, the inside of the envelope, the smudge of black marker, twice each in case one came out blurred. Then I put everything back exactly as I'd found it, slid the envelope into the inner zip pocket of my school bag under a stack of marking, and mopped the floor. Mum's car pulled up while I was wringing out the cloth. She came in smelling of cold air and the hymn book, asked if I wanted a coffee, kissed the top of my head on the way to the kettle. I said yes please in a voice I didn't recognize. Some questions you only get to ask once. At dinner I watched her butter a slice of bread. She does it the same way every time, edge to edge, no gaps. The whole kitchen felt like it was leaning very slightly to one side, the way a boat does before you notice the tide has turned. I waited until she'd poured the tea. Then I said, as lightly as I could manage, "Mum, when's Brandon's birthday again? I want to take a flower up next week." Her hand stopped. The knife stopped. She didn't look at me. She looked at the butter dish like it had said something rude. For maybe 4 seconds, nothing in the room moved except the second hand on the kitchen clock. Then she set the knife down very carefully and said, "April the 3rd, love. You know that." And she smiled at me, and her eyes were wet, and she changed the subject to a parishioner's hip operation. April the 3rd is the infant date, the date on the headstone. The date on the paper in my school bag is in October. I didn't push. I helped her wash up. I said goodnight at the usual time. Now I'm lying in the dark, listening to the rain hit the skylight and the old beams creaking the way they always creak. And for the first time in my life, this house does not sound like it is settling. It sounds like it is holding its breath. On to the next one. I started searching from my classroom. Year 3 goes out to the field at 12:30, and I have until 1:15 with the door shut and a sandwich I don't eat. I tried every county records site I could reach. I tried the parish registers. I tried the local papers archive, which goes back to the 1970s on microfilm scans. There is no obituary, no funeral notice, no school memorial, nothing at all for a 14-year-old boy with our surname dying in the October on that certificate. Not in our village, not in the next one, not anywhere in the county. What I did find, after 3 lunch breaks of scrolling, was a single column from the year before I was born. A little girl called Brooke, aged 11, died on the footpath that runs behind the cottages, the same path I walk our dog on every evening. The paper called it a tragic accident. No suspect was named. Her parents were quoted once, very briefly, and then the family moved away that summer. I sat there with a half-eaten sandwich and remembered something I had not thought about in 15 years. A new girl joined my class in year 4. Her name was Brooke. My mother came to pick me up on her first day, heard the teacher call her name across the playground, and went the color of dishwater. She made me change schools at the end of that term. She said it was about class sizes. I believed her, because I was 9. That evening, I rang my Aunt Emily. She and Mum haven't spoken properly since Dad's funeral, but she always sends me a card on my birthday with a tenner in it. The phone rang 4 times. She picked up and said my name warmly. I said, "Auntie M, I need to ask you about Brandon." The line went dead before I finished his name. I rang back twice. It went to voicemail both times. Within the hour, she had blocked my number. That was when my hands started shaking and didn't stop. I sat in my car in the school car park until the caretaker tapped on the window to ask if I was all right. I said yes. I drove home. I made my mother her tea. I went up to my room and I opened my laptop and I wrote the post. By 2 in the morning, the replies were stacking up faster than she could read them. I asked if anyone had ever found a forged death in their own family. I said I was scared. I said I was sitting in a house with the woman who had signed the paper, and I didn't know what to do in the morning. People were so kind. People were also frightening. I'm copying a few of the ones I keep coming back to. Tea and thunder. The handwritten redaction is the part that's making me feel ill. Offices don't do that. A person who was scared did that. Concrete orchid. Whatever you do, do not meet him alone. Do not let him pick the place. Do not tell him where you teach. Northfield librarian. I work in records. A death certificate issued for a living person almost always involves a solicitor who knew the family well. Look at who signed it. The signature is a family friend my parents used for everything. Wills, the cottage deed, my school fees. He died 4 years ago, which I think is exactly why my mother felt safe leaving the envelope where she did. She thought the last person who could explain it was gone. On to the next one. 4 days later, she came back with an update nobody wanted to be right about. I met him. I wish I hadn't. I waited until Wednesday, because Wednesday is Mum's volunteer morning at the food bank, and I knew she'd come home softer. I put the kettle on. I put the envelope on the kitchen table, photographs and all, and I sat opposite her chair. She walked in, saw it, and sat down without taking her coat off. I asked her one question. Who is Brandon really? She started crying before I'd finished the sentence, and then the whole thing came out of her in one long, quiet rush, like she'd been rehearsing it for 30 years and had finally been given the cue. Brandon never died as a baby. The little grave in the churchyard belongs to a cousin's stillborn boy. Her sister, my Aunt Emily, agreed to let them use the name and the dates because the baby had no marker of his own, and the family was, in her words, trying to make something terrible into something useful. Brandon was 13 when Brooke from 2 doors down died on the footpath. He came home that afternoon with her hair ribbon folded in his coat pocket. When my mother asked him about it, he described what had happened in the same voice he used to describe a football match. Calm, almost bored. He said it had been an accident and that he had stayed with her for a little while afterwards because it seemed like the right thing to do. My parents went to the family solicitor that night. Not the police, the solicitor. Within a year, Brandon had been placed, which is the word she kept using, under a different name in a secure unit a long way from here. A year after that, a forged certificate said he had died at 14. The black marker over the cause of death is my dad's. He did it the night they signed the papers. He was released 8 years ago. He lives in a bedsit 2 villages over. He has been writing to my mother every few months ever since. She kept every letter in a biscuit tin under her bed. She showed me. There are 41 of them. The most recent one is dated last month. It asks, very politely, when he can finally come home and meet the sister. He means me. He has always meant me. Every birthday card my mother set out for the dead baby, every white tulip in April, every bedtime story about the brother I never had, was built around a living man who has been waiting, specifically and patiently, for the moment he gets introduced to me. The replies turned, almost all at once, from sympathy to alarm. Milo who knits. Grace, please don't sleep in that cottage tonight. Your mother has been receiving letters from him. He knows the address. Ferris wheel victim. Your mother isn't a villain, but she isn't safe either. She spent 30 years choosing his secret over your reality. She will choose it again if he asks her to. Bramblecourt. I grew up 2 villages from what sounds like your area, and I remember a girl called Brooke who drowned in the late 90s. Nobody believed it was a drowning. Please be careful who you ask about this in person. Half asleep, Hannah. I'm from the same stretch of country, and I remember the rumor too. The official story changed twice in a week. Grace, whatever your mother tells you, the village already knows a version of this, and they've been polite about it for 30 years. On to the next one. I packed a bag that same night. Not a dramatic one, a weekend bag, the kind I take when I cover a residential. Knickers, 2 jumpers, my work diary, my laptop, the biscuit tin of letters, the envelope. I left a note on the kitchen table that said I needed some time and that I would not be giving her the address. Mom was upstairs running a bath. I closed the front door behind me very softly because I did not want her to come down and ask me to stay. A colleague at school has a spare room above the village shop, 2 streets from the green. She didn't ask anything. She just made up the bed and put a glass of water on the nightstand and said the door bolts from the inside. I have been there since. I kept the letters, all 41. They live in a shoebox under the bed because I cannot bring myself to throw them away, and I cannot bring myself to read them in order. Sometimes I take one out at random and read 3 lines and put it back. They are all very polite. That is the part that bothers me most. They are the letters of a man who has been taught, somewhere, how to sound reasonable on paper. Against everyone's advice, including my own, I agreed to one meeting. There is a day center in the next town that supervises these things. A staff member sits in the corner. There is a panic button under the table. I told them I needed 40 minutes and a clear view of the door. Brandon was already sitting down when I came in. He is older than I had let myself picture, softer in the face, very neat, iron shirt, hands folded. He stood up when he saw me and said my name like he had been practicing it. He asked about my class. He asked if I still had the dog. He knew the dog's name. I do not know how he knew the dog's name. We talked about nothing for about 20 minutes. He was good at it. Then I asked him, because I had promised myself I would, what had happened on the footpath with Brooke. He thought about it for a moment, the way you think about a question at a job interview. Then he smiled very slightly and said, "Oh, that was just an accident that got tidied up." Exactly the same tone he had used to ask whether year 3 were doing nativity this year. I stood up. I told the supervisor I was finished. Brandon asked if he could give me his address in case I wanted to write. I let him hand me the card because I did not trust my legs to argue. I walked to my car. I sat in the car park for a long time with the heater on full. I blocked the address that night. I have not been back to the cottage. Mum has left 3 voicemails. I have not listened to them yet. I might, one day. I might not. I'm all right. I'm safer than I have ever been, actually, now that I know. But I do not think I will ever again sit in a quiet kitchen with quiet people and assume the quiet means peace. Half asleep, Hannah. The detail that broke me is the birthday photos. Your parents kept performing a missing baby for you while a teenager was being hidden somewhere else. That's a level of commitment I can't process. Quiet Quentin. The solicitor is the thread to pull. They committed a crime to make that certificate. They'll talk if a lawyer of your own contacts them. On to the next one. There's a 3rd name on our lease, and my mom and I have never met her, but she eats from our fridge. I'm Vanessa, 27, and I cut hair for a living. About 6 weeks ago, I moved into a 2-bedroom condo with my mom, Natalie, because my long-term relationship imploded in the kind of way where you leave with a duffel bag and a shoebox of receipts and nothing else. Mom offered to split rent on a place neither of us could really afford alone, so here we are. Tired beige carpet, a balcony that looks at another balcony, and a couch she's basically lived on since we signed. The lease is a sublease, cheap for the area, which should have been the first flare. There are 3 names printed on it. Mine, my mom's, and a 3rd one, Haley. The leasing agent told us not to worry about it. Haley moved out before we toured, he said. She was just still on the paperwork because the original tenant hadn't filed the change yet. He even laughed about it. Ghost roommate, he said. free third name on the lease. Week 1 was fine, mostly. Boxes everywhere, takeout containers, the usual. But twice I came home from the salon and the kitchen light was on when I knew I'd shut it off. Once the thermostat was set to 66 when we keep it at 72 because my mom is always cold. I blamed her. She blamed me. We dropped it. Then came a night neither of them could blame on the other. 3 nights ago I got up around 2 in the morning for water. The fridge door was already open. Not cracked, open, with that little warning beep going off like it had been ajar for a while. My labeled Tupperware of leftover pasta was on the middle shelf, lid off, fork still in it, about half gone. I don't sleepwalk. I have never sleepwalked. My mom was snoring on the couch with the TV on, exactly where I'd left her at 11. I reached in to grab the container, and that's when I saw the second one behind it. Same brand of Tupperware, same blue masking tape strip across the lid that I use for everything in my fridge. And in black marker, in my handwriting, it said, "Haley, do not eat." I have never written that. I have never met a Haley. I stood there in the kitchen at 2 in the morning, holding a container with my own handwriting on it for a person who supposedly doesn't live here, and the fridge just kept beeping. I showed the container to my mom the next morning. She turned it over in her hands like it was a piece of evidence in a courtroom, frowned, and then did the thing moms do where they decide the rational answer before you've finished explaining. "You probably wrote it half asleep," she said. "You've been stressed. You labeled it for someone you used to know and forgot." I told her I don't know any Haley. She shrugged and said, "Well, that's the only name on it." I threw the container out. I kept the lid because some part of me wanted to keep proof. 2 days later, there was a 4-pack of strawberry yogurt on the top shelf, a brand neither of us buys. My mom is lactose intolerant. I don't eat strawberry anything. They were already opened, one of them, with a spoon resting on the rim like someone had been interrupted. That same night, I logged into the router admin page because the Wi-Fi had been crawling. There were 4 devices connected: my phone, my laptop, my mom's phone, and something called HP Tablet 7. We do not own a tablet. I scrolled through the connection history. That device had been pinging our network for almost 3 weeks, mostly between 10 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon, which is exactly when I'm at the salon and my mom is at her sister's. So she did what anyone would do. She called the man whose name was on the lease. I called the landlord. I asked, point blank, who Haley is and whether she still has a key. There was a pause on his end that lasted about a second too long. Then the same script as before. "She's gone. Don't worry about her. She moved out months ago. The locks were changed before you signed." When I asked him to put that in writing, he said he'd get back to me. He hasn't. I started a notebook, just a cheap spiral one from the drugstore. Every time something is missing or moved, I write down the date, the time, and what it was. Half a rotisserie chicken on a Tuesday. A travel-sized shampoo from my bathroom on a Thursday. The thermostat down to 64 on a Friday I didn't come home until 9. Last night, I changed the Wi-Fi password. Long, random, the works. I sat on the couch with the router page open and watched HP Tablet 7 drop off the list. I felt good for about 50 minutes. Then a new device joined. HP Tablet 7. Same MAC address, new name. Same password I had just generated and written down on a sticky note I had not shown anyone. The Wi-Fi thing broke something in my head. I stopped sleeping properly. I started noticing things in my own bedroom I'd been training myself to ignore. My top dresser drawer never quite shuts because the runner is bent, and I leave it with about a finger-width gap, always the same. Twice this week, it was flush closed. My round brush, the expensive one, lives on the left side of the vanity. I found it on the right, with a hair in it that was longer than mine and a shade lighter. I brought it up at work to my coworker Laura. She and I share the back 2 chairs at the salon, and we tell each other everything. I expected her to laugh. She did, at first. She did the whole ghost roommate bit, asked if Haley at least cleans up after herself. Then she got quiet, mid-foil, and said, "Hey, weird question, but why did you unfollow me on Instagram like 8 months ago? I thought you were mad at me for a long time." I told her I never unfollowed her. I pulled up my account right there at the station. She was the third person in my following list. She looked at her phone, then at mine, then at hers again, and said, "No, the Vanessa who follows me is a different account. The handle is almost the same. One extra letter." I didn't finish her highlights. I sat in the back room and went through every app on my phone like I was undressing in front of a stranger. And then she opened the one app she never uses. In my cloud storage, there's a folder I did not create. It's called Shared, V. Inside are 416 photos of me. Some are from my public Instagram, fine. Some are screenshots of my face from videos I posted as stories that expired a year ago, less fine. And some, I swear on everything, are selfies I only ever sent to one person, in private messages. Photos I took in this bathroom in this condo, with the same chipped tile behind my shoulder. Photos that have never been online. The folder is shared with one other account. The email on it is a string of numbers and the name Haley, lowercase, no last name. It is 3 in the morning. My mom is asleep on the couch. The Wi-Fi is showing 5 devices tonight instead of 4. I am posting this from my phone in the bathroom with the door locked because I do not know what else to do. Please, has anyone been through anything close to this? I keep waiting to feel scared, and instead I just feel watched, like I've been watched for a really long time and only just turned my head. Midnight Lurker. The handwriting detail made me physically recoil. Get out of that unit tonight, not tomorrow. Tired stylist. Hairstylist here too. Our Instagrams are gold for scrapers because we post our faces, our schedules, our location, and clients tag us. I am so sorry. 4 days later, she came back with a title that read like a confession. I found out who Haley has been talking to. I need to write this out before I lose my nerve. The advice in the original thread sent me down a path I did not want to walk down, but here we are. I started with the parallel account Laura showed me at the salon. One extra letter in the handle. The profile picture was a photo of me from 2 summers ago, one I posted publicly. The bio said hairstylist, my city, even my pronouns. Going back through the post, it was like watching my own life narrated by someone who had only ever read about me. My captions, slightly reworded. My old clients tagged in throwback photos I never reposted. Comments under every single one, hundreds of them. I started messaging people, quietly. Old clients. 2 of my cousins I haven't seen since the funeral 3 years ago. An ex I swore I'd never speak to again. I asked the same question to each of them. When was the last time we talked? Every single answer was within the last 6 months. Every one of them thought they had been talking to me. One cousin sent screenshots of birthday wishes she sent me in March, which I never received, and which someone replied to from my face thanking her for remembering. Then I pulled my credit report. There is a card I did not open, issued almost a year ago. The address on it is this condo. The most recent charges are a meal kit subscription, 3 grocery deliveries, and a 4-pack of strawberry yogurt. Laura sat with me last night while I cried in the back room. She showed me her thread with the fake account. Months of conversations. Me complimenting her new bangs. Me asking about her sick dog by name. Me sending a voice note that wasn't a voice note, just a typed message styled like one. She said, "I never questioned it. It sounded like you. It used your words." That is the part I cannot get past. Not the money, not the lease, not the food. The fact that people who love me have been loved back by someone else wearing my name, and none of them noticed. Deleted user. The container labeled in your handwriting that you didn't write is the part I can't stop thinking about. Someone has been practicing. Ghost in the ductwork. Check the storage closet, the crawl space, and the space above the water heater. I am not joking. I worked maintenance for 9 years. Rentalhell.com. Adding to this, also check whether the unit has a second mailbox key issued. In a lot of these older condo conversions, the original leaseholder kept a duplicate, and management never logs it. That's how the deliveries are clearing without OP ever seeing a box at the door. The last thing she posted was less a story than a status check. I did everything you all told me to do. I filed a police report. The officer who took it was kind, but visibly tired, and told me identity cases like this go into a stack that doesn't move very fast. I filed with the FTC. I froze my credit at all 3 bureaus the same afternoon. I changed every password I have ever owned, set up the Authenticator app, killed every old session on every device. I reported the impersonation accounts on 3 platforms. They came back. Not the same handle, new ones. Same profile photo, sometimes cropped a little differently, sometimes mirrored. 3 days, 4 days, a week. One gets taken down and another wakes up with the same following list, the same pattern of likes on the same old clients' posts. I have stopped counting. My mom wants to move. I want to move. The sublease has a penalty that would eat the deposit in another 2 months of rent, money we genuinely do not have. So we are still here. I put a deadbolt on the inside of my bedroom door. We bought a little camera for the hallway that pings my phone when anything moves. The landlord still has not returned my calls about Haley. I have given up expecting him to. I have never seen her face, not once. No photo on the lease, no profile picture that is actually her, no shape in any of our doorways. She is a name on a piece of paper in a handwriting that matches mine and a yogurt brand I will never be able to look at again. Last night at 11:47, I got a DM from a brand new handle. No text, just a photo. It was my front door. This front door. The dent at the bottom where the previous tenant kicked it, the cheap brass numbers. Taken from inside the building, from the hallway. The hallway my camera is supposed to watch. I checked the camera feed. It had been offline for 9 minutes. Concerned Kara. The door photo broke me. That's not identity theft anymore. That's a person standing 6 feet from where you sleep. Please do not spend another night in that unit. And on that note, on to the next one. I, 27, male, live in a rooftop flat with my sister, and we physically cannot leave the building after dark anymore. I'm 27, a night shift nurse at the county hospital, and 6 months ago, my sister Sophie and I moved into a converted rooftop flat on the 12th floor of this beautiful old residence building downtown. Sophie's 19, a nursing student, and honestly, she's the one who pushed for the move. Our old place was a shoebox above a laundromat. This building has a courtyard with a fig tree in the middle, string lights, potlucks every other Saturday where someone always brings too much lasagna. Neighbors know your name by the second week. Our downstairs neighbor, Olivia, is in her mid-40s, has lived here since the building went up, and she remembers every kid's birthday on the floor. I loved it from day one. Sophie kept saying she finally felt like she had a family that wasn't just me. For 5.5 months, it was the happiest I've ever been. 3 weeks ago, on a Wednesday, I left for my shift the way I always do. Scrubs on, badge clipped, coffee in a travel mug. Sun was just touching the rooftops across the street, that orange hour where everything looks expensive. I locked the front door behind me, said bye to Sophie through the wood, and started down the stairwell. I always take the stairs. 12 flights, good for the legs, beats waiting on the lift. He'd done it 200 times. I counted them, the way I always count them. 1 landing, 2, 3. Around the 7th, I realized the light in the stairwell had gone weirdly even. No windows passing anymore, just the same pale bulb every turn. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I should have been at the lobby. I wasn't. The next landing said 12 again. So did the one after that. I told myself I'd miscounted. I kept going. My quads started to burn. My coffee went lukewarm in my hand. I tried to look out a window, and there were no windows. Only that bone-colored paint and a faint smell of wet moss that I had never smelled in this building before. I went down what had to be another 20 flights. My phone showed no signal. I started taking the steps 2 at a time, then 3. Then I was basically falling down them, and somewhere around the point where my chest actually hurt, I shoved through a fire door, expecting the lobby. It was my hallway. 12th floor. My own welcome mat. My own front door, the little ceramic number Sophie hung up herself. I stood there breathing like I'd run a marathon. Then the door opened from the inside. Sophie was in her pajamas, hair wet from the shower, and she gave me this puzzled little smile and said, "Did you forget something?" I heard you leave like 40 minutes ago." I called out sick. I sat on the kitchen floor with my back against the cabinet and told the charge nurse I had a fever, which was technically true because I was sweating through my scrubs. Sophie made me toast. She didn't ask why I'd come back. She just put the plate next to me and went to bed like it was a Tuesday. I spent the night running every reasonable explanation I could think of. I was exhausted. I'd worked 6 in a row. I'd taken a wrong fire door on some sub-landing and circled back without realizing. Old buildings have weird quirks. Mezzanines, half floors. The brain fills in stairs the way it fills in dreams. By sunrise, I had myself almost convinced. Then morning happened, and morning is what really started breaking me. I went down for the mail at about 9. Same stairwell. 12 flights, clean and normal, sunlight pouring through the landing windows I swear hadn't been there the night before. The courtyard was full. Mr. Acharya from the 4th floor waved his newspaper at me. 2 of the little kids ran past, chasing a balloon. Olivia was at the bench under the fig tree with a foil-covered dish on her lap, and when she saw me, her whole face lit up. "Logan, sweetheart, I made too much ziti. Take some home for you and Sophie." Then, casually, stirring her tea, "How was your shift, honey? You look wrecked." Nobody on that bench was acting like anything had happened. So he started acting like it too. I took the ziti. I said the shift was long. I went back upstairs and ate a forkful standing at the counter, and it was genuinely the best pasta I'd had in a year. The next night, I tried again. Earlier this time, 6 in the evening, sun still well up, scrubs on, badge clipped, no coffee because I wanted my hands free. I told myself I'd been spooked, that was all. I made it down 4 flights at a normal pace, and then the windows just stopped. The paint went pale. That mossy smell came up through the soles of my shoes, wet and green, like a basement that had never been a basement. Somewhere below me, 2 or 3 landings down, I could hear music. A small radio, tinny, playing something old and slow. There is no radio in our stairwell. There are no flats between the lobby and the 2nd floor. I kept going anyway. I had to know. I went down until my knees were shaking, and the music never got closer and never got further. And when I finally shoved through a fire door, I was on 12 again, panting in front of my own welcome mat. Sophie opened the door before I knocked. Her face was perfectly calm. Not surprised, not even sad. She just said, "You should sleep, Logan. Just sleep. It's okay." I stood in the doorway and did the maths in my head. I had not actually been outside this building after sundown in 9 days. So I got methodical. I'm a nurse. I chart things. That's what I do. I made a list of every way out of this building and tested them one by one over 5 nights. Main stairwell, endless, mossy, radio music. Fire stairs on the east side. Same thing, but with a faint dripping sound that got louder the further down I went. Service lift. This one was the worst. It opened cleanly onto the lobby. Real lobby. The brass mailboxes, the dusty plastic ficus, everything. I walked to the front door and pushed. It didn't move. I pulled. I put my shoulder into it. I braced one foot against the frame and hauled. That door is a normal wooden door with a normal brass handle, and after sunset, it might as well have been welded shut. Through the glass, I could see the street, a man walking his dog, a bus going past. He didn't look up. Roof access, locked from the outside after dark. I'd never noticed because I'd never tried. In the morning, every single one of those doors worked. The front door swung open like silk. I stood on the pavement in daylight and laughed, because what else do you do? I told Jessica at work. She's my charge nurse. We've worked nights together for 3 years, and she's the most unflappable person I know. I expected her to laugh me out of the break room. Instead, she went very quiet and said, "Logan, don't sleep there tonight. I mean it. Come to mine." I didn't go. I told myself Sophie needed me. The truth is, I wasn't sure the building would let me not come back. That was when he started watching properly. Once you start looking, you can't stop. No car has left our lot after dark in 3 weeks, I checked from the rooftop. Every window in the building is lit by 10 in the evening and stays lit. The kids in the courtyard drift inside before the streetlights come on, every single time, without anyone calling them. Olivia is always home. Mr. Acharya is always home. The young couple on 6 who supposedly work in finance, always home. They have day lives. They go to jobs. They buy groceries. They come back. And then they stay. I asked Sophie last night, very gently, if she'd noticed anything strange about the building. She was doing her anatomy flashcards on the couch. She didn't look up. She said, "I noticed you keep trying to leave." Quiet, lurking Quinn. The potlucks are the trap. Friendly neighbors who never seem to have jobs in other parts of the city is a massive red flag in retrospect. Bee on the sill. Has Sophie actually left the grounds in daylight since you moved in? Not said she did, actually left. I'd test that before you test anything else. She has. I've watched her walk to the bus stop and I've picked her up from campus. Daylight is fine for both of us. That part is real. It is specifically after the sun is fully down. And before anyone asks, yes, I already tried leaving at dusk with the sky still pink. The stairwell behaves normally until the streetlights kick on, and then it does not. An hour after Logan posted, the update went up. Olivia brought us dinner and explained everything. She knocked at 7 on the dot, casserole dish in both hands, smiling that warm Olivia smile. Said she wanted us both at the table. Sophie sat down without being asked. That was the first thing I clocked. Sophie was not surprised. Olivia served us, chicken and rice, the kind that takes hours. Then she folded her hands and said, "Logan, sweetheart, you've been having a hard time with the stairs." I said yes. She said, "Everyone does, at the start. I'm so sorry no one sat you down sooner. I told Sophie we should have done this in week 1, but she wanted you to settle in first." I looked at my sister. She was looking at her plate. Olivia explained it the way you'd explain a tricky bit of plumbing. The building keeps anyone who sleeps under its roof past the 3rd night. It has done this since it was built. She doesn't know why. Nobody does. The original families just learned to live with it. After dark, no one leaves. In daylight, you can come and go as much as you want. Work, school, errands, holidays even, as long as you're back inside before the streetlights come on. The potlucks, the casseroles, the way everyone knows your kids' names, that's not a trick. That's what grows in people once they accept they're going to die in the same hallway as everyone else here. "We're a family because we have to be," she said. "It turns out that's enough." Then she said the thing. "Sophie signed the addendum for both of you on the 2nd of August. I notarized it in my kitchen. She's known since then." 2 months. Sophie has known for 2 months. She kept making me dinner and asking about my shifts and laughing at my stupid jokes, and she knew. I asked her why. She finally looked up. She said, "At the old place, you worked nights, and I came home to nothing. I just wanted somewhere we couldn't lose each other." She was crying. Olivia was holding her hand. I don't know what to do with that. I really don't. I'm not angry the way I should be. That's the part that scares me most. 3rd shift Ron. "Fellow night nurse here. Please call out sick and sleep at the hospital tomorrow. Do not test it a 4th time." Marigold in the attic. Old buildings with that level of community always have a price. Ask Olivia how long the longest resident has been there. The answer will tell you everything. Concrete hymns. This. My grandmother's kind house had a woman on the ground floor everyone called Auntie, who had supposedly lived there since the building opened in 1912. Nobody ever did the math out loud. A week later, Logan posted one more time. "I'm on day shifts now. Jessica took the bones of my schedule and rebuilt it on her lunch break. 7 to 7, no exceptions, and she traded with 2 other charge nurses to make it stick. I owe her more than I can ever pay back. She did it without asking me to explain a second time, which I think is its own kind of love. I stopped trying the door after dark." That's the strange part to write. I stopped. For about a week, I'd still walk down to the lobby in the evening just to look at it, the way you press a bruise. Then, one night, I just didn't go down. And the next night, I didn't either. And now, it's been 4 days. Saturday was the courtyard potluck. I went. I had told myself I wouldn't, and then sunset came, and there was the smell of garlic drifting up the stairwell, and Sophie standing in the doorway in a clean shirt. And what was I going to do? Eat alone upstairs while my sister sat down there by herself? Olivia handed me a plate without asking. Rice and something with lemon. She put it in my hands and squeezed my wrist once, gently, and moved on to the next person. And I looked around the courtyard properly for the first time since all this started. Mr. Acharya, the couple from 6, the woman with the twins, the old man on 3 who plays chess against himself on the bench. Every single one of them, when their eyes landed on me, had the same look. Not pity, recognition. They all remembered their own first plate. Sophie sat next to me. She didn't try to talk. After a while, she put her head on my shoulder, the way she used to when she was small and our mum was working late, and I let her. I'm still angry. I think I will be angry for a long time. But she's 19, and she was lonely, and she did a terrible kind thing, and she is still my sister. Olivia caught me on the stairs going back up. She said, "The door opens at sunrise, you know. Every morning. That's the mercy of it. Don't forget the mercy." I won't. Concrete hymns. My grandmother lived in a place like this in the 70s. She called it the kind house. She never visited us. We always had to go to her. I'm so sorry, OP. Thanks for staying with me through all 4 tonight. If these stories keep you company, hit subscribe and I'll see you in the next one.